Okay. Father Andy was ordained a priest in 2018. That seems a long time ago
Yeah,
already.
all of a sudden it is. Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But he has served in Salina, in Gibson. Currently, you're the chaplain of the Como Catholic Campus Center and part-time chaplain at Thomas More Prep Marion Junior and Senior High Schools. You're also the co-vocations director for the Salina Diocese. So, what we're going to talk about today is you just went on a trip. Did you go by yourself or did you take some campus kids
Campus
with
Center.
you?
Yep.
Okay.
So it took 15 of us total.
You went ahead and record before you get started here.
That would be good.
Is it? Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it is recording, but
Is it?
it's just weird.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead and fill some air, Andy.
Yeah.
Father Andy.
So,
Just go ahead and
man, this
talk.
happened. Yeah, just the other day, I was at a grade school classroom, and I walked in. This is in Junction City,
Yeah.
at their Catholic grade school, like with the second grade, I think. And they all start telling different jokes, and everybody's going around sharing their favorite joke. Pretty soon, they say, "Father, what? Can you tell us your favorite joke?" I was like, "Oh man, I didn't expect it to turn on me," and the disappointment in their eyes when I didn't have a joke. So this fill and air thing, it's not my. I need to have a. I'm learning as a priest. You got to have a joke ready at all times for.
Right. It's
Yeah.
got to be clean.
Yeah.
Not that a priest would tell a dirty joke.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I think we got it going.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us, who did you take and
So yeah, we took.
and why? I mean, how did this all come about?
Kind of, I guess it started because we're lucky to have at Fort Hays at the campus center. We have Focus missionaries there. So we have 4 Focus missionaries. It's been there now. I think we're in our 4th year with them. And so they generally every year on different campuses across the country, they lead pilgrimages or mission trips for students. And so we knew we wanted to do something with the group over spring break. And so we were just kind of coming up with all kinds of different ideas. And a lot of us had heard of the Camino. We had a girl named Maria that was at Fort Hays last year. Who was a faithful Catholic girl from Spain. And so she had shared with us last spring one time about this Camino de Santiago and this pilgrimage over in Spain. And so a lot of our students had heard about it. Anyway, we ended up deciding on doing that. And we took 15 of us total over there. So it was myself, 9 students, our 4 Focus missionaries, and Macy Becker, who's our development director. And she's the one that kind of like headed up all the logistics of the whole thing and, planned it all out and did a great job with that. Cause we had, as most people, anybody who's flown overseas and stuff, there's always hiccups, and so we had plenty of those. And so she did a great job navigating all those difficulties. But anyway, so we decided to do it. And kind of what it is, like, what is the Santiago, Camino de Santiago? Camino just means the way of Santiago, St. James.
Right.
The way of St. James. And so kind of the story here is you interrupt me whenever you want to.
No.
But,
tell us the story because a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
So
going all the way back, and we're getting close to liturgically that time now where we celebrate Jesus' ascension, here before too long. Well, before he ascends into heaven, he gives the Great Commission, sends his apostles to go out and baptize, preach to all nations. And so we know at least some of the apostles, the tradition is Thomas, for example, he takes the faith all the way down to India. To this day, Southern India is still very Christian. And we know where Peter ends up. He ends up getting, crucified in Rome. So Paul, for example, he has all these different communities, ends up as well dying in Rome. So you can still, to this day, you can go see where Peter and Paul, where the remains are. And then, so St. James, the tradition is St. James, the brother of St. John, the beloved disciple, sons of Zebedee, the sons of thunder. So St. James the Greater, he takes the faith to Spain. And so he gets on who knows, I don't know if he went, across the northern part of Europe or if he went over the Mediterranean Sea, but he gets to Spain, which at the time was the end of the known world. Nobody knew there was anything west of the Atlantic Ocean at that point. So he takes the faith as far as he can. And tradition is he was fairly unsuccessful. Like one of the numbers that gets thrown out there as far as the tradition is that only 8 people convert. He gets over there, starts talking about this Jesus, and only 8 people are like, okay, we believe that. Everybody else, not so much on board. For whatever reason, he ends up being called back to Jerusalem, goes back to Jerusalem for a little while. When he's there, King Herod is still around and kills him. He's beheaded. And then at that point, some of his disciples had come back and they rescue his body and they send it back to Spain. And again, these are old stories, a lot of traditions here. But one of the stories is that as the body went back to Spain, the body of St. James the Apostle, it was kind of like shipwrecked on the coast of Spain. And for a while they couldn't find his body. And when they did, eventually they found this coffin covered in seashells. And so when they open it up, they realize what it is, that it's the body of the apostle St. James. They take it out to the end of the known world. They take it out into northwestern Spain and put it out in this field. And time goes on, and all kinds of different history in Spain. People almost kind of forget that it's there, and so it's not until the 800s that there's a monk who's in the area who is kind of walking around in this field. And again, the story, kind of the tradition is he sees these stars kind of miraculously dancing in the field. And he walks over to go check that out. And underneath those stars is this coffin, and somehow finds out, okay, in that coffin is the body of St. James the Apostle. So as a faithful monk, he's pretty excited about it. Word spreads. Word eventually gets down to the king of Spain, who's in southern Spain, and he makes the first ever way of St. James. The king of Spain, who's a faithful Catholic king, walks from where he's at up to go reverence the remains of St. James in the 800s. And from that point forward, that was the first ever Camino. From that point forward, word spreads, and they build a church over it, and it grows into a little city. And that city now is called Santiago de Compostela. Santiago means St. James, day of Compostela. Campa is field in Spanish. Stella is stars, field of stars. Pilgrims now, when they walk, their symbol of their pilgrimage, they wear a seashell when they walk this, and that goes back to his body being covered in seashells. And so those are some of the symbols, and some of the history behind it. And then through the Middle Ages, especially in the Middle Ages, pilgrimage became a big deal. People wanted to go to these holy sites, and so the three biggest ones would have been, okay, let's go to Jerusalem and see where Jesus walked, where he did his ministry, where he lived. But it's pretty dangerous to get over there. You can go to Rome and see Peter or Paul, or you can go to Spain and see James. So it became one of the most common pilgrimages throughout all of Europe in the Middle Ages. And so they developed like this really common route called the French Way, where people would come down from France, go over the Pyrenees Mountains there where Lourdes is. And to this day, that's like the most common route people walk. If you were to walk the whole thing, it would take about a month or so. We only had spring break to do it. So we picked up at the tail end of that trip and walked for 4 days. How
long is it?
From where we walked, I know it was about 80 miles. So
What's
81
the whole
miles.
Thing?
The whole thing, I don't know how far it would be from like the beginning of the one in the French Way from France all the way there. I don't know how many miles. I just know it takes approximately a month to walk for people.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing a movie about it.
The Way.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And so what did you all have to do to train to walk 80 miles? That's a lot.
It's pretty far. Yeah. So I mean, and the terrain there is so different than it is here in Hayes. It's pretty mountainous and pretty hilly, and so, but we're here in Hayes, and so we had to just walk on this flat ground. We were all to varying different degrees, training before we went, and so our focus missionaries did a great job of like actually, wearing their backpacks almost every day for a while, with the kind of weight that they're going to be carrying, practicing. So really, training just looked like walking around Hayes and in circles, trying to get ourselves ready for it. And
so what's the furthest you walked here before you went over there? Do you know?
I walked one time just for like 2 hours. So my training was very terrible. Like I did not give it near as much time as I should have. And that would have been, we had some students who were like me. We had some students who took it real serious. And so we were all over the map as far as students being in shape, as far as students training, all that. And so it was kind of fun. We all enter into this at different levels. Yeah. And really in the end, I mean, we all got through it pretty good. One huge part of it is you got to pay attention to as you're walking, like on your feet, where they call them hot spots, like where blisters might start to develop. Because that's the one thing that could ruin this trip big time, is if you just get a ton of blisters on your feet day one and you got to keep walking on those the whole time. That makes it pretty tough. So
what do you do? I
learned from, luckily I had some priest friends who had done it before, and so Father Rockers had done it, and his mom, Barb Rockers, brought me some duct tape actually one day and said, you're gonna need this. So this is not necessarily the I don't know, the most common way to approach it, but I took her advice, wherever you have like a hot spot on your foot, when you know like this is where I'm probably gonna get a blister, you just preemptively put some duct tape on it. And I know at the very end I got one tiny blister on our last day, but that duct tape
does it.
there's all these jokes about all the miraculous stuff duct tape can do. Add that to the list, right? It can keep your feet from getting blisters, and so it was pretty successful.
Huh.
So it was
Yeah.
exhausting walking, but it wasn't overly difficult.
Okay, so you had one of the Focus missionaries decide where you were going to start. Wasn't St. James the first martyr?
He was probably the first apostle that was martyred in the scriptures. So I think in I think it's Acts of the Apostles it would have to be. He's martyred by Herod. Saint Stephen would have been the first martyr. Deacon,
that's
but of the apostles.
Of the apostles,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow. So, when you were walking this, did you meet a lot of different people, or? Oh, I better stop here because one of your fans has called in. I think Barry Hoffman from Russell just donated $500. He said he loves Father Andy, and that Father Andy and Divine Mercy Radio are such a blessing. Barry is a Catholic convert, right?
Yep.
And he's been on the radio to talk about that. So he's challenging other converts to donate to the radio station,
Nice.
which is the number to call for your donation is 785-621-4110. And while we're at a break, I'm going to just throw out a trivia question. And I'm going to holler at Lester. If you can get me a cough drop, that would be great. Okay. Okay, here's the question. Here's the trivia question. The network of pilgrim routes known as how do you pronounce that?
Camino de Santiago.
Camino de Santiago came together at the tomb of which of the original apostles in Spain?
See if they're listening.
Yeah, we'll see. St. James the Greater, St. Andrew, or St. Bartholomew. Now, folks, if you were listening at all, you should call in 785-621-4110. Who was the apostle at the tomb?
In Camino in Santiago de Compostela.
Okay. St. James the Greater, St. Andrew, or St. Bartholomew. 785-621-4110. An easy way to get your name into the pot today to try to win a $50 gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Store. So give us a call. Okay, where are we at?
I can tell you if you want here down at a quick.
Yes.
Maybe because this helped. It made the getting there finally on the last day that much more enjoyable.
Okay.
We had a heck of a time just getting there, you know. So it was on Thursday, March 9th that we left to go over there, and so we drive to Denver to fly to the airport, and we're gonna stay in Denver that night, fly out the next afternoon. We got 15 people flying, and that next afternoon, all of a sudden, we're about 2 hours away from getting on our plane, and we just get notified, technical problem, flight's canceled.
Oh no!
Sorry. And so, oh man, now we got 15 people trying to figure out an international flight, and these things are, you know, generally pretty full, and so it ended up not being. It just turned into a quick mess. So I'll share. We ended up having to stay in Denver that night. The next day, our flight to Newark, New Jersey wasn't until like 9 p.m. or something like that. So we had to spend a whole day in Denver. The only cool thing about that was we had the opportunity we went and stayed in this hotel. And the airport put us up in a hotel. And then we ended up going to mass at this little church nearby there. This upstart church in a part of Denver that's you know, expanding. The priest that was at that church happened to be the first ever priest to lead a focus group on the Camino de Santiago.
Oh, wow.
So here we are, all of us doing it for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And here's this guy giving us all this advice. And that was pretty providential. Really cool to meet him.
Wow.
His name's Father Jason, I think. And then, so we get to the airport. The only other cool part about it is we have all these, the airport's somewhat guilty. I mean, at least it was United Airlines. And so we have these meal vouchers. So I will never again the rest of my life eat as good as we did at the airport. But we had to use all the vouchers. And so one night, me and the 3 guys that were with us went and got some steaks in the airport, and that was kind of fun. And we flew to Newark, ended up not getting to our hotel that following morning till like 7:35 a.m. So that was crazy. Just nobody slept. And that night, finally, long story short, our route got changed from supposed to go to Madrid, from Newark, New Jersey to Madrid. That all got messed up, so we had to go to Frankfurt, Germany.
Oh
So
my
we fly to Germany. It's
goodness.
just one thing after another, and but the crew was keeping a good morale, and Macy was doing a great job trying to just navigate all the changes, and so we ended up in Frankfurt. The cool thing about that was I learned this. This is true. They told us before we left that Americans have a stereotype for being very loud overseas. You know,
Oh,
like
really?
which I'd never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we get to Germany, and it's a massive airport, and there's just as many people there as there was in Newark, New Jersey, and Denver, but the volume of noise is like completely different. And so there's all these people standing around talking with their kind of hushed voices. The only thing you could hear in the whole airport was bags like rolling across, and our group. Like our group was like unbelievably loud compared to everybody else there. It's hilarious. But we wake up the next morning, got to have a good German breakfast at the hotel, and then finally got on a flight and got to Madrid. Took a bus and a train to Sarria, which is kind of the town we'd planned on starting from, and from there on, then we actually got to. Everything was pretty smooth. We got to walk the Camino.
So you would be almost 2 days behind.
Exactly. Yep. So we had to, all of us had to look at our schedules and basically push things back 2 full days. And we had one student who had a funeral coming up later in that week. He was able to talk to his parents, and everything was fine. And we made it back. So I think we were planning on getting back on a Sunday night. I was going to make it back for Sunday 6 p.m. mass. We ended up not getting back to Denver until Tuesday night, and then we had to drive back Wednesday morning. So, but it worked out.
Yeah. So you were making phone calls.
All kinds of phone calls.
Bail me out.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. I got some help, definitely.
So, you would have probably met some interesting people. I'd like to hear about that.
Mhm.
And what's the scenery like too? I'm
Way more for whatever reason. I think maybe because of that movie, you know, The Way with Martin Sheen. It's a good movie.
Right,
People should
right.
check that out. It's good. I think a lot of the scenes in that movie, it's beautiful, but you see them walking through a lot of wheat fields. I know there's parts of Spain where you have this expanse of wheat fields, which looks similar to Kansas. That's what I had in my head, and that's not what we saw. We had a real small little, you know, like I said, we walked the final couple days of the Camino, but what we saw was mountains and rivers and really old farms. It was kind of like it was like a flashback in time as far as like looking at the farms. The equipment was small and a little bit older. They had these huge dogs as you're walking through all these farm towns and by these farms, like a lot of mastiffs. If people know what mastiffs are, these huge, like, 4 foot tall dogs. They're big old dogs. And but it was kind of like going back in time. Like a lot of the small towns we were walking through were still very much alive, and so beautiful farm. We had a couple of farm kids with us, and they weren't even able to tell what the crops were. I was asking them. I was kind of challenging their farm knowledge, but it was just interesting to see how small the equipment and stuff was over there, and but very mountainous and really beautiful. And as you're walking as well, everything that since you're walking the thing, everything that you have with you on a trip is on your back, and so you carry some snacks and stuff like this. But we had to stop and eat kind of just where we, around noon or so every day at some little town at some cafe. And that was really cool too, just to stop in some random little town and kind of at the mercy of what they have on their menu. And it was always good. So way better food than I expected the whole time. And one of the most common things on a lot of the menus was octopus, actually called like pulpo.
Oh yeah.
Octopus. And I thought it was great. You could have it a couple different ways. You could have it grilled, where you're like eating the tentacles grilled. And I was too much of a chicken to try that, but but they had it like cut up in these little circles. That was really good. And so all kinds of stories with food. We had one guy, prawns are like gigantic shrimp, basically. And just like shrimp, you're supposed to peel the the shells off and all that. For whatever reason, I don't know if one of the guys on our trip, I don't know if he was so excited to start eating or what, but he just bit right into the head of one of these prawns without peeling it, and got pretty sick really quick. And anyways, food was great and cheaper over there as we went. And yeah, we did. We ran into, there was a couple guys from Ireland that were walking that we met at one point, and then we saw them multiple different times as we were going. they were doing actually a documentary on it. So they interviewed me one morning at a cafe for this documentary they were doing, and I was very tired. So probably the most boring interview of all time. I had no idea like how to respond to their questions. Like, so I'm a little bit nervous to see that if they ever put it up on YouTube. But we met them. We met a couple. I think they're from Singapore, and they had walked the entire thing. They had started like way from the beginning, and they're a married couple just enjoying themselves. Ann Wheaton, one of the girls with us, met this another girl from England, and ended up hitting it off with her. And then it was really cool when we finally got to Santiago. She ran into her again later, and they're all excited to see each other and caught up on the trip and stuff. So it ran into a lot of people, like you see in that movie, The Way. That's part of the journey. It's really cool. And
so, how many days did
so
you walk?
We ended up just walking 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually, you get up in the morning, you stay in these things called albergas, which is like a hostel that you've heard of over in Europe. But an alberga is like a hotel, except you're staying in a room with a bunch of people, so it's you don't have the comforts you normally have. Like when we stayed in Madrid, they had like actual hotels there. As you got into these smaller towns, you got to share a room. So it was split up guys and girls. You'd have a guy alberga and a girl alberga. And there was really only one time where there was a couple other guys in our room. And one of those times when we stayed, there happened to be a guy in that room there from the University of Kansas, which was crazy.
Wow.
This guy who was walking up on his own. And so that was kind of a small world there. But so you'd stay in these albergas, like military barracks, a bunch of bunk beds, like you see in the movie The Way too. Like if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's a bad deal because you're going to hear all kinds of like there's a chorus of snoring going on, and it's hard to fall back to sleep. And,
so how about showers and stuff? I'm thinking of all this stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you have just one big bathroom, and they'd have plenty of showers, but you did have to wait a little bit longer than you normally would, probably in a hotel. And so you'd have to kind of, if you wanted to shower on time, you had to get up pretty early, and there's 30 other people in the room you got to try to compete with. But there'd be about 10 showers or so in these places. And so you wake up, we usually start walking around 9:30 or 10 every morning. And our crew, I would say in general, we probably, because we were in various different levels of shape, we walked maybe slower than you normally would if you went with just like with 2 people or something. So I think the ideal for people is to get up and walk around whatever 9 in the morning, 8, and you get to your next town you're staying in by early afternoon, by 2 or 3 or something.
Okay.
You have time to rest, take in the town, get something to eat, pray. But for us, for the most part, we were walking from 9:30 or 10 in the morning until about 7 at night or 8 at night. And so we'd get to the next town, and a lot of the churches are actually closed right now. I think the Camino gets more popular as you get into the summer season. But so we ended up having to say mass actually oftentimes in our alberga, like in just a big room. So we'd get there, we'd say mass, and then we'd have supper and go to bed and get up and do it again the next day.
What are some of the things you did as you were walking?
That's one of the coolest things about it is you take off walking. Of course, it's beautiful. So you're immediately just taking in the scenery and seeing all these old buildings as you're walking through these towns. But we every day when we first started walking, we'd spend the first hour in silence, just kind of doing a holy hour as you're walking, just praying. So you get to pray on your own. Some people are praying rosaries, some just taking in the sights and talking to the Lord. And that was a great way to start it every day. And then we had, like I said, 15 people with us, and you have full days of walking. So I think pretty much everybody on our group had an opportunity over the course of 4 days of walking to kind of just shift around and get to know each other really well. You're walking, just sharing stories about each other's lives and laughing. And our group it was really cool because very few people on our group were really close to each other before we went. It was a pretty good mix of students from different walks of life who were just all involved in it. And so we all got to know each other pretty well. So a lot of just talking and catching and each other's stories.
So when you get to the gravesite, what's that? I mean, did you get to celebrate mass there or what?
That was cool. Yeah. So yeah, you go through all these towns. Each day had its own unique things about it. But yeah, you finally arrive in Santiago, which is amazing because it's kind of down in a valley, and the road you walk in on is up on this little mountain.
Mhm.
So you get to see this destination you've been heading towards for all this time, kind of all at once from up above. And the church is unbelievable. So you get to see the church from up above, and that kind of gives you some energy. Like, okay, let's finish strong. You walk into the town, and then yeah, the church. It's unbelievable. People should look it up online. Just Camino de Santiago or just Santiago Cathedral. Really amazing facade on the outside and architecture. And so you walk in, and the first thing that hits you is like the all around the altar. It's just shiny gold, you know, and then the main altar itself is pure silver, and it's just
Wow.
like everything's just glimmering and how much of it's real gold and stuff I don't know, but I mean it shines, and so that's all beautiful. Beneath that, there's a little staircase that takes you down directly below the altar, and that's where the body of St. James is to this day. It's in a coffin, so you can't see his bones,
Right.
and it's behind like these little there's a little archway and some bars that come down that you get to look through. But you can get within maybe like 15 feet of it, and
Yeah.
so there you are in the presence of the body of St. James the Apostle,
Wow.
and yeah, it's extremely special. So
Do you ring the bell? Like in the movie?
we didn't see that. I didn't. I'm sure some of our students did. I messed that up. Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't ring the bell. There's a few of those like little traditions that I think I missed out on.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there is something about being down there when you know in your mind like you're in the presence of the Apostle.
Mhm.
That kind of leads you to some deep prayer. And myself as a priest standing there, just this asking for his help. He's one of the first ones to go out and spread the faith. He had his own struggles. Like I said, he only had converted 8 people, but he also got to walk with Christ and knew him well. So many different things you can ask his help for. Help me in times when it's tough. Help me when I got to face persecution. Help me to everything about the Lord that you got to walk with him and learn about him. Help me to go and share that too. And those are powerful things to just ask his intercession for. One of the coolest things about me for the entire trip was this wasn't a trip I just did like with a couple friends.
Mhm.
I was there as chaplain of all these students who I care a ton about, and so that was a really cool moment. I'm standing down there like praying with St. James, and then it's a small little spot down there, so I'm kind of backed up against the wall, and then every so often one of our students would come down and just be praying there as well. So I'm kind of just standing back watching our students pray to this apostle, and that was powerful for me in that moment, but the entire trip to be kind of get to be their shepherd on this trip and like praying for them as they're experiencing all these really cool spiritual moments, and that was a unique perspective for me that I've never had before, like going on pilgrimage with people who I minister to.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
really
just
cool.
thinking you're really a father. A
You
father
felt it,
to
yeah.
those
Yeah.
kids,
That's right. Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Only being the way I'm 33, that spiritual fatherhood side of priesthood doesn't always. I always wonder if it hits you more like the older you get as a priest. But in the ministry I get to do, at least I'm older than or near old enough to be their actual dad. But like I very much on this trip felt like a spiritual father and loved it. And all of us together are struggling in. People are sore as they're walking. We had there's one hilarious moment where our hardest day of walking, we walked from like 9 in the morning or so to like 9 at night. It was the longest walk we had. Really, really uphill that day. And it's on a Friday, and this is during Lent. And so we get all of us we get into this restaurant at the end of the day, and we are absolutely exhausted. And nothing sounded better than like a good steak or just give me some good meat or something like that. And it's Friday, so okay, we gotta get some fish. One of our girls with us speaks really good Spanish, but she hates fish, and she tells the waiter in Spanish, like, please just give me some. I have to have fish today, but give me something that's safe. I don't want to taste the fish whatever your best fish is, please can you give that to me? And they said, we got you. Don't worry about it. They bring out some white baked fish. And when they set it down, it's this basically a fish with its head cut off. And this is like with scales all around it. And the inside was cooked. But you can still see the scales. And they set it down on her plate. And she was really respectful. Like she saw the waiter set it down and she kind of just looked at it and waited for him to get away. Then she got up and walked to the restroom and proceeded to just start crying. You know, it was too much. Like she's like, she just wanted some food.
Yeah.
We came back out and somebody gave her some rice, but it was funny. We've laughed about it.
I feel for her.
We've laughed about it since then. And I felt disgusting because, well, I'm sitting across from her and then she doesn't know what to do with it. So I was like, well, I'll at least try it. I was pretty nervous too. But when I took a bite of it, it was like, this is actually really good. It was better than I expected. So I had no sense in the moment of how, because I just started diving into it and eating all of it, how disgusting that probably was for her to watch me right across from her eat this thing that's about ready to make her throw up, you know? But so moments like that, we had multiple students, they reach their limit at different times and they're breaking down and so, yeah, we all to have each other's backs and to get to be there as their priest and kind of help them through the downs, but also to experience like those super highs with them as well and laugh and pray in front of St. James with them. It was really special.
But you had to be going through that too.
Sure. Oh yeah.
You know, and getting past yourself to help them.
Yeah. I mean, we're absolutely in it together, right? All of us were in the, yep. And yeah.
Well, I'll give out the second trivia question. Lisa Eisminger is the one who knew that St. James the Greater is the saint buried at the
Camino de Santiago.
Santiago. I am definitely do not have Spanish background. Okay. So our 8:30 question, where I just think I might let you ask this one because you can probably pronounce these better than I can.
Sure. Okay. Where was St. James martyred? In Galicia, Spain, in Jerusalem, Israel, or in Patras, Greece? Galicia, Spain, Jerusalem, Israel, or Patras, Greece? Okay. We'll see again if you're listening. This is a tricky question. Yeah.
So the number to call is 785-621-4110. So gosh, Nathan did a good job of coming up with questions.
Yeah,
for your talk.
He did some research on those. Yeah.
So, okay. Did you have any bad weather or anything?
We were pretty lucky. It was 60-ish degrees pretty much all the time. And it was just a matter of whether the sun was out or not. And so we got drizzled on quite a bit, but it was never like downpouring rain. And so we would have all of us beforehand prepared to where we had these covers to put on our bags so your belongings didn't get all wet. But it was so the drizzle was never like uncomfortable. Just kind of just put up with it. And almost every day for about half a day or so, the sun would come out as well, and it would be pretty warm. And so it was never uncomfortable weather-wise.
Shedding clothes, putting things on constantly.
Yep,
oh
exactly.
My gosh.
Yep.
And then I'm thinking, if you only get to a town at 9:00, you're lucky to find a place to stay.
Those luckily were booked for us beforehand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There are people who do it that way, just with 15 of us and with Focus. The Focus organization has an entire branch of people who it's their full-time job to help with these trips. And so we're lucky to have all that, when you travel, to have basically like a professional travel agent help you with all those kind of things. And so they helped us navigate all the flight cancellations. They booked all of our albergas ahead of time. So we knew where we were staying, which was pretty helpful.
Yeah.
So we could arrive really, within reason at whatever time we needed to.
So you knew like tomorrow's going to be the long day or
exactly. Yeah. We knew that one day, that was our hardest day for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, Mary Schrader is the trivia winner, so she was paying attention.
Good job, Mary.
Your name will be entered into the drawing for a $50 gift certificate from Messenger Traditional Catholic Store. It's a great store here in Hayes, too. I don't know. Is there another Catholic store in the diocese that you know of?
No. Messenger's the only one I can think of. There used to be the one in Salina, but it's not there anymore. That'd be a great move for somebody in Manhattan or maybe out west.
Yeah. I know they have online store too, so you can order from them online and they'll ship out. So, So why do people do this?
Yeah, good. Good. I mean, in multiple different reasons you could say that there's something about, and as Catholics we get this pretty good, but there's something about physical things, you know, that help us in our prayer. So we have the sacraments, right? We take ordinary bread and wine, and then God takes that and turns it into his body and blood. We have water to symbolize baptism. Like we have relics that we spend time with, and God can work through and heal through. And so physical places as well have meaning. And so to go to Jerusalem, for example, like where Christ, it's his body still there, no, but he walked there, he lived there, he ministered there. So there's a value in going to these places where God's work was done. And likewise in Rome, you go stand in the presence of, we reverence the body, you know, the body is given to us by God, body and soul. And so the bones of a holy person are worth being in the presence of. And so to go see Peter or Paul, and likewise with James, so it'd be the same thing. It's here's the bones of somebody who walked by Christ, and there's a value in that. And some would say, like, when you come into contact with something like that, you can almost feel like the distance between heaven and earth is like smaller, you know. And I had this experience last summer in a different way in France when we went on that pilgrimage with our seminarians.
Right.
I remember leaving Ars, France, where Saint John Vianney did his ministry that last day there. And it just hit me like, this entire time I've been in this town, there's something different about this town than anything I've felt anywhere else. And it's not just because Saint John Vianney's body is still in there and he's incorrupt. And I think it's because the years that he did ministry, the amount of confessions he heard there, it's almost as if like that's a town that the devil kind of just gave up on and said, you know what, this town is like repugnant to me. Like I don't want to be in the presence of a place where there's so many conversions, so many holy things have been done, and you can like literally feel the peace in that town. It's like one of the few places on earth where the devil just threw up his hands and said, I don't want to be a part of this, you know. And he tried when John Vianney was there, you know, he threw him around, but eventually I think that was at least a thought that came to me, like, this space, this physical space is holy and it's worth going to visit for that reason, right? Because holy things were done here. So you could say the same thing about being in the presence of a body that holy things were done through, and along with that, you could say like a pilgrimage is kind of like in a sense, you could say like a microcosm of our earthly pilgrimage. You know, we'd say our life here, we're only on earth for a short amount of time, and our final destination is heaven, you know, and so through that life, there's all kinds of ups and downs and sacrifices and joys and time in prayer until we reach our final destination. And so this holy heavenly destination. So likewise with the pilgrimage, you have a chance to kind of do all those things in a short amount of time. You know, you make sacrifices, you have all these joys, you have spiritual highs, and you reach this holy destination in the end. And so it's kind of an opportunity to help you reflect on the meaning of your life as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the Holy Land's on our bucket list here. We're just waiting for somebody from the Salina Diocese to do one next year after I retire.
I hope he gets to go. Yeah.
I really, that is definitely on our bucket list. So I just think it would be so cool to be where Jesus actually walked, or in a house that he actually was there.
Have you had someone on here to talk about a Holy Land pilgrimage before?
No. Have you?
I haven't been there yet. I need to go. Maybe I'll go with you.
We need a priest to lead it, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe we can pull it off.
The other thing is, I'm thinking you have to take all your stuff on your back, but you also had to take your mass stuff.
Yeah. And so that was an interesting part of it. So pretty easy to bring enough hosts, you know, and you can have like a real small chalice. You can have like a real small little corporal. So you can get the mass kit down real small. A Magnificat. You can actually celebrate the mass just using a Magnificat.
Oh.
All the Eucharistic prayers and everything are in there. The difficult thing was wine, because they'll only let you take so much wine on a plane, and it's got to be like an enclosed. So that we actually ran out of wine at one point, and we had to stop in this little church and ask this local priest for more wine. And luckily, I mean, he would have no reason to know that I was a real Catholic priest. I have papers with me, but I mean, Luckily, he believed us, and we had some good Spanish speakers with us, and so he happily gave us some more wine, and so yeah, there really that didn't add too much more to the
Yeah.
backpack. You can get it down pretty small.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So,
One really cool thing I'll share on
okay,
it.
do please.
From the and we didn't get to see this, but this is worth people looking up on YouTube or something. So in the church in Santiago that you get to, at Mass when you have incense, the thing's called a thurible. Smoke comes out of it and all that. So the biggest one of those in the entire world is in this church in Spain. And you cannot just have some server walk with it. It's hanging down from the altar. And it's called I'm trying to remember. They got a special name for it. I think I did write it down. Yeah. The Bota Fumero. But it's just a huge thurible, huge incenser. It hangs down on this rope right in front of the altar. And on special feast days throughout the year, it takes like 8 or so men to come down and pull this rope that gets it swinging back and forth, and it just spreads incense all over this whole place. And so like they have to let it down. Some guy comes over and grabs it, fills it with incense, and then gets it all lit and ready to go. And he pushes it. Then he joins the crew, and you look it up. It's hilarious. These 8 guys come down and they start pulling it on this rope. And then like the transepts of the church, so the church is kind of cruciform. You have the nave going. You're looking at the altar,
Right.
So you have pews going all the way back for that. But then on the sides, there's also pews facing the altar. And so this thing swings above that. It kind of swings in the arms of the cross, so to speak.
Wow.
And it's so cool. They pull it, and it gets all this momentum to the point where it's swinging all the way up to the top of this really high ceiling, just back and forth, back and forth. They told us a funny story a couple hundred years ago. Apparently, it flew off the rope and went flying out one of the rose windows on the side and just flew outside. And
Oh, wow.
so they had to get a new one. But that's worth checking out. Like I said, unfortunately, when we were there, they did not. They didn't. We asked them. They didn't use it. We were there on a solemnity of St. Joseph. Apparently, that wasn't a high enough feast for them. But someday it'd be cool to see. But,
So this would have been the end of March you were there.
right. Right. Yeah. So we
Right before Holy Week.
pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. We got back a week or 2 before Holy Week.
Yeah. Did it make any difference in you celebrating Holy Week?
It's definitely like, well, like for example, Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is there with Peter, James, and John. So there's these scenes from Scripture that we know. James, the very apostle, we were whose bones we were in front of. Those scenes now just really pop out, So definitely, especially that Garden of Gethsemane, that's a big moment where it's like, come on, James, you should have stayed awake, man. But no, you felt close to him because you just got done seeing him, and now with the resurrection, with Easter and everything, you can imagine, when you go spend time with a saint, to some degree, your devotion to him increases, and so now as you're imagining Christ appearing to the apostles in the upper room. Now it's a little bit easier for me to just imagine James specifically, like what was James' response, and so that's been cool because you feel like you know him a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was one of the 3 that got, Jesus always called on those 3, like transfiguration
Exactly.
and different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That was special. That one other cool tie was, so that incense that they have there that they put inside of that giant thurible. In the gift shop, you can actually buy some of that. And so I bought quite a bit of it and brought it back to the campus center, and we were able to then use the same incense they use in that thing during Holy Week at the campus center too. So we'll save that for special occasions.
Yeah. Does that smell really good?
It smells great. Yeah, it smells
I
good.
love incense anyway. So.
Yeah.
So did any of the kids run into any hardship? I mean, how about coming home? I mean, you had such trouble getting there.
Yeah, sure. Coming home was actually ended up working out just fine. It was amazing how smooth it was compared to getting there. One crisis that ended up working good, being kind of funny. When we flew from Frankfurt, Germany to Madrid, 3 of our students lost their bags. They lost their bags, which is kind of a big deal because
it is.
Everything you have for that entire trip is in there, all your clothes, and you need good gear, like good walking shoes, good, everything. Everything's important so you don't get blisters and all that. And one of the guys that lost it was a guy we had with us named Jonah Smith. He's from Plainville. He's a defensive lineman at Fort Hays, just a big guy, you know, just a big dude. And this was funny because we get to Sarria, Spain, and he doesn't have his bag, and so he's got to go shopping in Spain, and he's by far bigger than any man we saw in Spain. Like nobody's even close to his size, and so they don't have clothes his size even close in this little store we're in. So we had to wear like pretty small clothes for the first couple of days walking, which was pretty funny. He handled it well. But then they found his bag and they taxied it to us. And we had 2 other students who were missing their bags too, and they were troopers. We had one, it was kind of a cool story. Part of it was like we had one girl who for a couple of days was kind of struggling walking, and so her bag was weighing on her. So one of our girls who lost her bag and was, you know, kind of down about not being able to have her stuff, was able to then carry that other girl's bag and kind of take the weight off her shoulders for a little while, and that helped lift her spirits. Okay, like God is using this in some kind of way, you know, and so there's all kinds of really cool moments, like meeting that priest that had done the Camino before, you know, that led the first group, you know, her losing her bag and then being able to help, in a sense, carry her cross, you know, those kind of images. And like there's so many different things along the way that there's no question we're providential, and hardships, but also unbelievable joys and humor. And you know, another huge thing about a pilgrimage is you come back from that, and the crew that you're on it with, you're kind of bonded forever.
Yeah.
Like you experience something really, really cool together.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we'll always have that. So,
Yeah. So anything planned for the future?
Right now we're looking at it. It's not set in stone, but you know, I think every spring we'll do some kind of a focus, either a mission trip or a pilgrimage. The plan right now is to go next spring to Ecuador and serve the poor in Ecuador.
Oh, wow.
So we're hoping to take 15 to 20 students or so and go down there and help. I think it sounds like you in the morning, you help build to some degree, some things that they need some construction on. And then you have some like spiritual reflections throughout the day and some catechesis. And in the evenings you go and do like door-to-door ministry and evangelization and try to tell people about the Lord. And so that's the plan right now, tentatively for the spring.
Well, it sounds like having the focused missionaries on our campus is really a super good thing.
That's very, very good. Very good. We're lucky to have them, thankful to have them. We've got a good crew. Chuck, I don't know if you got to meet Chuck yet, but Chuck will be back next year as our head missionary. And the other 3, unfortunately, they're moving on to different places, and one of them is getting married, and so we're gonna have 3 new missionaries next year. We'll miss those 3, but 3 new ones, and Chuck's coming back to lead us. So, yeah, they do really good work.
Yeah. Well, that keeps your ministry going and growing too.
For
so
sure.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share? What's going on at TMP? What are you?
Jason Everett's there today. Jason Everett's going to be speaking to him.
We tried to get him in here this morning, but it didn't quite work out.
He did a really good job last night. I was over in Victoria for that.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, he did an excellent job. I've been sharing about this trip, you know, at TMP when I've been going over there. So I've showed him. I was able to show him some of the pictures. The picture of that fish that made the girl cry, and so it's been fun sharing with them. They're major end of the year vibes at TMP right now. The seniors are
ready to go,
doing their best. I mean, they're a couple weeks away, so everybody's hanging in there the best they can, but they're ready for summer.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. Yeah. So, who's the banquet or the graduation speaker this year?
Natalie Hyman, actually.
I don't know.
Her last name is Natalie Bry. So that's cool because she's actually going to be speaking at the campus center this Wednesday. She's a classmate of mine from 2007 at TMP. She's now a clinical psychologist up at this Catholic institution in Nebraska. So she's very faithful. She was one of the smartest students at TMP when I was there. You know, she's a National Merit Scholar, all this. But anyway, now she's a clinical psychologist, and so she does all kinds of work. She does a lot of mental health work with kids. She's going to come speak on Wednesday at the campus center about anxiety, just managing anxiety for our students, and that's valuable for everybody to learn about.
Oh yeah.
But they also got her back to come speak to our students for graduation. She's definitely a distinguished alumni. She's pretty special.
Yeah. Very good.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Father Andy, for coming in. We appreciate you. Thanks for helping me out here.
Sure,
too.
sure. You're doing a good job, Donetta.
This is not my talent.
Yeah,
My
you got it.
talent's, at the desk and organizing it.
I think you're
But,
doing great. I was
but,
listening to you and Father Fred on the way in too, and you got it. You got it
Yeah,
down.
well, Father Fred's good.
Yeah.
He can cover for me too. Thank God for our priest. Can you give us, end with a blessing or
Sure.
prayer?
Sure. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we thank you for all your blessings that you have in store for us. We thank you for our diocese and the Diocese of Dodge City as well, and all those in the listening area. We thank you for KVDM Radio, for their ministry and their apostolate, and I ask you to keep sending down your spirit upon them and all the listeners who support and listen every day. Help us simply, and those who listen to the station, all of us in our diocese and surrounding areas, to do your will. Help us to be your disciples, and like St. James, follow you wherever you call us to go and spend eternity with you in heaven. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, Father.
You're
Andy.
welcome. You're welcome. Good luck today,
Yeah.
Donna.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. You're a great chaplain, not only for the campus center, but for us.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you.
Okay. Lester, if you want to come in, I'm going to save his audio. And so somebody needs to be talking.